Welcome to Life Wisdom with Ed Langan, the place to come for practical and spiritual information to help you move forward along your path and life wisdom from the guides. On this spiritual talk show, we talk about everything from self-love and creating your own reality to quantum physics and what your soul wants you to know. I'm your host, Ed Langan. I am a psychic channel for the Ascended Ones, the guides. I am a master mindset coach, a law of attraction expert, and a spiritual teacher. Other than that, I am just a regular dude, whatever that might be. In this episode, my special guest is Britt Kreitman, the well-balanced witch. I'm going to interview Britt, and we're going to talk about how she balances the material world and the spiritual world. In the second part of the show, I'm going to bring in the guides and answer questions for you, so you can send in questions ahead of time. And I'll go over that when we get closer to that. Just remember, the more powerful and more focused the question, the more powerful and more focused the answer. And you can send me messages ahead of time if you have questions ahead of time. And Cindy is here already. Hi, Cindy. How are you? Hope all is well out where you are. Rob is here. Hey, Rob, how are you? Ann Donahue is here. Hi, Ann. How are you? Nice to see you. Glad you're here. Thank you for everybody who's liking and sharing all our videos and all our shows on Star Nations, including mine. We really appreciate that. And what you're doing is you're helping people who are seeking this information to be able to find it. Star Nations is a wonderful spiritual reference for lots of different shows, lots of different information. Today on Thursday, I know Maureen Mann has her show tonight at 7 o'clock, and I believe Polly Joe's show is also on at 8 o'clock after that, both Eastern time. There's lots of wonderful, wonderful shows on Star Nations. If you haven't checked them out, you should check them out. So from all of us at Star Nations, thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. And just turning the page here. Oh, okay, good. Today is December 10th, so the magazine is published. There is the cover with the beautiful mushroom on it, and there's information about Hanukkah and about Christmas and all the holidays. So, and this is issue number 91. So check that out. We'll put the information in the comments there so you guys can subscribe to the magazine if you'd like to. And this is our December show, so this is the holiday edition. So I have my red holiday shirt on, so good. And Nathan is there. Hello, Nathan. How are you? Glad you're here. While we're waiting for more people to join, I just want to remind everybody that once a month we do a meditation and prayer, and Marge has the information up on the screen there. Marge is here as per usual, flying the plane. And the next meditation and prayer is going to be on Monday, December 28th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And what we ask you to do is we ask you to either pray or meditate on peace, love, harmony, and healing for 10 minutes from 7 till 7:10 Eastern Time, and whatever appropriate time for you. And if you can't join us right then, remember the time is not linear as we move into the higher dimensions, the fourth and fifth dimension. So if you can meditate the day before or the day of or the day after, and you set the intention that your energy joins ours, it will. So that way we can all add to that and send that positive wave of energy out into the world. Good. So with that, I would like to welcome our guest, Britt Kreitman. Marge is going to bring her up in a second. And if you guys want to say hello to Marge in the comments, she will see them. And we'll have Britt here in a second, and then I will read. There she is. Hi, Britt. How are you?
Hey, Ed. How you doing?
Good. Welcome. Welcome. We're excited that you're here. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And our friend Pauline from the other side of the pond is there. Hello, Pauline. How are you? So you can see the comments off to your side. Those are the people, and if you see people you know and like to say hello to, that would be great. Cool. I am going to read your bio, and this is taken from your website. And from an early age, I felt different. It took me many years to be proud of the uniqueness and to learn how to balance the two halves of myself. I've always felt a struggle between the everyday world and the world of mysticism. My heart has been drawn to the world that you cannot explain, the world you need to believe in to make it come alive. And I am grateful that I was raised in a predominantly pagan Wiccan household, which exposed me to that world as often as possible. I wake up each day and carry on like anyone would, but before I begin my day and before I go to sleep at night, I make a point to stop for a minute and acknowledge that there is something else at work around me, something that I can only call magic. I have a thirst for knowledge. I seek experiences and kindred spirits who walk the same path, as well as those who simply wish to learn more about it or to contribute something meaningful to it. And this, again, is from her website. This site and its perfect purpose is to bring me closer to what I believe has been my calling in this world, to help others in any way I can, especially in such ways that I'm uniquely suited to do. Whatever it is you seek, be it clarity derived from tarot, healing from the use of Reiki, or to simply improve your life through business and through counseling. So perfect, wonderful, excellent, welcome.
Hi.
And Britt is helping me with my website redo, which I greatly appreciate. And she's also helping me with some left brain stuff that I'm not good at, being a very right brain person. So we really appreciate that. There's a couple other people there. And Kelly Ann, who I think is one of your friends.
She is. Yes, I do have a few friends, which is wonderful. Thanks, guys.
And, Jen is there. Hi, Jen. How are you? Glad you're here. And Alicia, is that how you say that?
Yep.
Alicia, well, good. Welcome. We're glad you're all here. So excellent. Good. So, you ready for the tough questions?
Lay them on me. Let's do this.
So, in your bio and on your website, you talk about that your upbringing was different than from most people. So, can you tell us a little bit more about that? Can you go into some detail about that?
Sure. As some of my way back friends who are here today, like Nathan and Kelly, they have known me for most of my life, and they know that my mother has always been very closely tied to the Wiccan practice. She got into it later on in her life, but it was what she aligned with the most. And so she raised my sister and I with all of those traditions, predominantly Celtic, as her mother's side of the family hails from Scotland. So the Celtic pagan tradition is kind of what she felt the closest to. So that's what she taught us as we were growing up. And then as we got older, like we took that on for ourselves and we decided to do our own research. And now I guess we all kind of refer to ourselves as witches, which is a slightly different thing. So Wicca, or the practice of being Wiccan, is a little bit more of a modern twist on the pagan religion of that kind of region. But being a witch, it's more of a noun. Being a witch is a practitioner, someone who actually practices things like magic, and you have a deep respect and reverence for the natural world and things like that. And so because of that, you get a little ostracized when you're really young and people don't really understand what that means. But as you get older and people start to gain maturity and more experience, they actually come back around to you and they appreciate it very much. And a lot of times they end up seeking your help when the real world does not help them as much as they hope it will. So it made me much more cultured when I was young. But, you know, when you're a kid, that's a little tough. But as you get older, you really start to deeply appreciate it. So.
Okay, we're gonna talk more about that in a minute, but I want to define a little bit more of this. So my psychic ability and also comes from the Celtic side. I have a Scottish grandmother who used to read tea leaves, so my psychic ability comes down through my father's side, through the Irish Scottish side, and I don't know a lot about Wiccan and about paganism. So is that the same as the Druids, or is that?
Yes. So if you go back into kind of like some of the mythology, so there's a lot. So the Celtic cultures were predominantly a matrilineal society, which means that your lineage was passed down through your mother's family. And then because of that kind of appreciation for the feminine side of life.
Right.
There's a, they had a lot of emphasis on the goddess, and then her consort is the god. And there's a whole lot of like wheel of the year type of holidays and celebrations that go along with all of those things.
Okay.
For women,
what does that mean?
what, the wheel of the year?
Yes.
So the wheel of the year is the reference to all of the holidays that occur throughout the pagan calendar. So there are 4 high holidays, and then there are 4 what they call esbits, which is the seasonal changes. So like the solstices, the equinoxes, and then there are 4 other holidays that represent other important days of the year. And a long time ago, that had a lot to do with the natural world and living with it, like the harvests, when things would get cold again. And they attach a lot of history and mythology to these things by personifying them as male and female, god and goddess, like all that type of stuff.
Interesting. And so it's basically based on sort of circadian rhythms. It's based on the natural world.
Right. Pretty much.
Yeah.
And like people back then were a lot more in tune with that because they had to be in order to survive.
Right.
And it also just like it helps to explain things that nowadays you can explain by science a lot of times.
Right.
But I also believe that you can still be a scientist and also be a spiritualist. You don't have to choose one or the other, because ultimately it's all kind of the same thing anyways.
It is. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Spirit and science is the same. Yeah.
But in the Celtic tradition, priestesses were women that were initiated into the faith of the goddess. Druids were men that were taught in a similar fashion. So they were basically like the male, traditionally they were the male counterpart of the priestesses. That would be the idea.
Ah, okay. And the goddess that I know from over there is Bridget.
Bridget, she has a couple other names, Sardwen, but she is known as the triple goddess. So 3 is a magical number throughout most pagan faiths. And the idea of the triple goddess is the concept of like a life stage. So there's the maiden, the mother, and the crone. When they refer to the triple goddess, that's mostly what they're talking about, is the conceptualization of how you progress along your life path and the differences between those phases of your life. And there is a patron goddess for each segment of that.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That's fascinating. That's fascinating. So now I want to get back to growing up.
Yes.
And being perceived as different. Were you bullied, or was it?
Oh, yeah.
Well, sorry about that.
No, hey, you know what? You learn a lot.
Yeah.
It's mostly just because when you are very young and the household that you live in, like you don't necessarily understand that other people live completely differently from you.
Right.
Like some of my grandparents did expose me to Christianity. Like I went to church with them, I would do other things and I would learn from it, but it didn't feel quite as right as what we practiced at home. So that's why it's the difference when you're young, like all you want to do is fit in, which is the tough part. But as you start to get a little bit older, you realize that not fitting in isn't necessarily a bad thing. So.
Yeah, no, our world is based on abundance and diversity, and trying to eliminate that eliminates the basic energy of the universe. So it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So, all right, that's interesting. Now, you said that witch is a noun. So I want to it's about being a witch, and so do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So I mean, there's always like the folklore kind of tales about witches and they, commune with the devil and all that other crap. And it's just crap, really. Like, it's just crap. Yeah. I mean, back in the day, if you could read and do math, you were a witch. So it's like, no. Being a witch means that you, at least, so I'll explain what I feel the reason I describe myself as a witch, because everybody's definition is very different for themselves.
Sure.
The reason that I refer to myself as a witch is because it comes with that kind of pagan upbringing, that tradition, the concept of utilizing the world around you to bring things into your life, or in some cases, make things exit from your life. And I feel like being a witch comes with wisdom. It comes like when you're young, you're kind of like a novice. And then as you age and you learn more and you practice more and you expand your experience more, that's when you become a witch.
Right.
I mean, some people who follow a very ritualistic practice, they have a whole initiation process. Like there's robes and like you do it under full moons and all this other type of stuff. Like for me, it was always just something that I felt.
I
Like
see. Okay.
when you're one of those people that can feel things that other people can't feel,
Mm-hmm.
and then you kind of start to explore that and you start to learn about, you know, the tools that you can use, like stones and colors and candles and incense and herbs and all this other stuff. And then you collect all of that stuff together on top of what you can sort of develop as your own natural abilities. Like one of the things that made me feel even closer to becoming a witch is when I started to learn Reiki and I started to understand that the movement of energy is something that is very tangible and
Sure.
very noticeable. And then when you feel something like that, or when you kind of accidentally manifest something into your life, you realize that that's what magic actually is. Like when people ask what magic is, it's not like bibbity bobbity. It's like when you're thinking of someone and then they call you.
Right.
Like, some people say it's coincidence, but is it really? I don't know.
Some people, like me, call it law of attraction.
Yeah, law of attraction, manifestation, whatever you want to call it. Call it magic.
Yeah,
But
sure.
there's also those moments where I think that when you learn to get lost in your senses a little bit more often,
Mhm.
and it reaches you and it kind of makes you feel more alive, that's magic too.
Okay.
Some people, they like when it comes to spell work, I always tell people the same thing. You don't actually need all that much stuff. You don't need a lot of tools. You don't need a lot of this. You don't even have to be that specific about a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
It's more about your intent. It's
Mhm.
about the emotions that it elicits. And some people find it very helpful to have tools and
Right.
rhymes and spells and all of that type of stuff. But ultimately, it's all the same thing. It's props to help you manifest what you wish or remove what you wish.
So it's a way of focusing your thoughts and focusing your energy.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Definitely.
Cool. Okay. Good.
Mhm.
Excellent. Excellent. So how is that? How is that for relationships when you meet somebody and you go, "Oh, by the way, I'm a witch," you know, like, right? Hope she doesn't turn me into a frog, right?
Yeah, well, there's that. The hardest part with relationships is breaking down the stigmas and the stereotypes and actually like taking the long form discussion to be like, no, I don't, paint myself with blood and stuff. Like I just have a bunch of rocks and I like incense a lot. And, sometimes I hang out and stare at the moon for a while. Like it's not,
Right.
it's getting over the hump of that. But one of the most prominent obstacles that I have come across with relationships is that the pagan traditions, like for example, like one of the high holidays of the Celtic pagan year
Mm.
is known as Beltane. Beltane is the fertility holiday. It is not only the fertility of the land, it is the fertility of the people. And it is something that bears no shame. It is something that is celebrated. It is something that's very important. And I have found that people who have grown up in faiths that are a little less comfortable with certain aspects of your human nature,
Mhm.
it's breaking down those kind of stigmas and barriers. And that's one of the harder things,
Right.
is that I feel like certain religious structures place a lot of guilt on some natural aspects of human nature that
Mhm.
that lead to some pretty uncomfortable stuff as people age. And then when it comes into relationships, sometimes it causes problems with that type of stuff too.
Okay.
So it also any faith that discourages open communication about completely human things that you really need to communicate about, that's
Yep.
that's a big one, because like in what we practice and what we've always known is that you should talk about things, and you should not be, wary or ashamed of any of that type of stuff. So that's from a relationship perspective. That's probably one of the biggest obstacles and what I notice the most.
Okay. Well, communication is an absolute key in every relationship.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes, good. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't asked you this before, Simon. You talk about balancing the two worlds, and personally, I'm a Gemini, so I'm.
You're always swinging anyway.
I'm a little bit of that anyway, and it never struck me to ask you. Are you a Gemini?
No, I'm a Leo.
Oh, okay.
But so I am a Leo, but I am also, my two rising signs are water. So I have a lot of prominent fire, but I have a lot of prominent water. And
Okay.
as you know, anything about the natural world, fire and water are kind of opposing to each other.
Yeah.
And all of the emotional aspects that come with those two things are also diametrically opposed with each other. So I also feel that separation, not like a Gemini, but
yeah. So it makes you a little Gemini, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, you were talking about being able to feel the energy.
Yes.
Are you a psychic?
I mean, you could call it that, I suppose. I always, like, when you think of the quintessential psychic, you think of someone who visualizes things and stuff of that nature. And it's like, I've always wanted that, but it's never come about that way.
Okay.
My sister is a lot like that. Cassie is she's very intuitive in that way. And she gets significantly more like visual cues and auditory cues and things like that. I don't really get those that much. For me, it's just kind of feeling, like I just get a feeling, and it's very noticeable. And also I occasionally get smell, which will, if Kelly is still watching, Kelly will understand, and she might crack up about that, because that's something that I've always kind of dealt with.
Right.
But yeah, no, I guess you could call it psychic. It's not, people also misinterpret psychic to mean someone that can predict the future. It's really not about that.
Right. Yeah, we're not fortune tellers.
No, you're not fortune tellers. I say that anytime I give a tarot reading either. Like, I'm not here to tell your future. That's not how this works.
Sure.
But being psychic, meaning you are intuitive and you are sensitive to certain things. Yeah, I would say that.
Okay.
I could get on with that for sure.
So you're at the very least an empath.
Yes. Oh God, yeah. For better or worse. Definitely an empath.
Right. And my ability also comes through feeling. I don't see things all the time. Occasionally I do. I don't hear things all the time. Occasionally I do. I consider myself an empathic psychic. That's where my abilities come from. So I'm right there with you.
Okay.
We've touched on it a little bit. I just want to talk about this a little bit more. So what exactly is witchcraft? What I know that's a word that's thrown around, and it has a whole lot of some good, some bad. How would you answer that?
So witchcraft. So if the witch is a noun, witchcraft is more like a verb, I would say.
Okay.
Witchcraft is the utilization of your own energetic self or abilities on top of using the tools to either bring about necessary change or appreciate what is around you. Sometimes witchcraft is just gratitude. Sometimes it's just going out there and leaving an offering for whoever it is that needs it. And then that's it. Witchcraft is a really broad term, but it's what you do with your abilities, your intentions, and the tools that you use to bring them about is what I would say witchcraft is, from a very general perspective.
Right. Okay. Cool. That's good. I like that. What do you do?
What do I do
when things get challenging?
When things get challenging,
how do you balance your path, or what do you do?
I'm from New England, so usually I start by cussing a lot, unfortunately.
And you're showing great restraint on the show today. I appreciate that.
Not easy. No, when things get challenging and I've always kind of done this is, so one thing that I've always done, which might be a little weird, I've always had a very strong alignment with a maternal and a paternal kind of energy. And I talk to them on my own sometimes, mother, father, however you want to say it. Any guys that happen to be attached to me, great. And it's just like, I need help. I need help with this. I need you to help me, whatever it is. The other thing that I usually do is I stop, if I can. I stop, put some headphones in, zen for a while, try to realign. Because usually what brings up most of my challenges is myself, but also just like my own brain, the gears turning, all that stuff is where most of my challenges come from, is taking on too much, feeling overwhelmed, or when, like, just a bunch of bad stuff happens to come down the pipeline and you just have to deal with it. You rely on your inherent belief that this is supposed to teach me something and I need to stop being salty about it and try to figure it out. I have my loyal little furry familiar who always makes me feel better and who always helps me relax, and he's the best. And then I have my people. I have my community. I have the people that I love that I reach out to when I'm freaking out and I need help. And that's what you need. And sometimes your divine help comes in the form of everyday people that are around you. Like, it's not necessarily like some sign from above that's going to come down and strike you right in front. It's just people that happen to call you who you haven't heard from in a long time that will put you in a good mood. Or like, I have one friend who, she is on point almost every time when I'm having a moment. She texts me or she calls me. To me, that is another example of magic, is when help comes when you really need it, I think.
Right.
So
when you're asking for it, sure. And that's very much in line with what I teach about, when you get out of balance, the first thing you need to do is get yourself back into balance. So that's because the famous quote from Albert Einstein, you can't fix a problem from the same energy that created the problem. So if you continue to roll and roll and roll in the problem, you're not going to solve it. So the fact that you stop and get back into alignment, whether you meditate or walk the dog or call a friend or whatever, it's perfect. That's wonderful. That's great advice for everybody who's listening. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Have you had any ahas that have caused you to rethink your life, your approach? Now, that's a big question. But
I've been getting slapped with ahas for the last 2 years, to be quite honest. I don't know what happened at 31, 32, but the ahas just keep on coming. And ask anyone that knows me. My life has been a rolling caravan of just big changes from then on. And the ahas, one of the biggest ahas that I had was, I think I was 31, and I was in a job that I had been in for a long time, and I was in a relationship that was very unfulfilling. And I just remember sitting with myself and being like, how and why is this my life? How and why is this my life? I am so friggin' unhappy all the time. What am I gonna do? And once again, it took a conversation with a friend, and it took just the right amount of discomfort in my own skin, in my own life, and the right amount of frustration, which manifests into useful anger, being the key word there. And that's when I started making the changes. I just started making these scary judgment calls that kept snowballing into bigger and better things over and over and over again. And I mean, there was some downswings, but overall, sometimes you have that moment where you're sitting there with yourself and you're like, I am not happy so much more often than I am happy. And then some people can push that aside and they kind of just deal with it for longer. But sometimes you just get to a point where you're like, nope, can't do it. Can't do it anymore. Anything is better than this. I will do anything to get this to change. And once you reach that moment, things do change.
Yeah, they change quickly. So what happens is you get a very, very strong desire and a very strong asking. And when you get out of your own way and you're allowing that to flow, things can change very, very quickly. So you've had some places where you've had some very strong asking and have energy shifted, which we all have, you know.
It's scary. It can be very scary, especially
Oh, yeah.
because you're just getting tossed consistently out of your comfort zone over and over and over again, and you're getting presented with choice after choice. And if you keep making the choices that you know will make you happy, even if they are the more difficult choice
Right,
that
right,
requires more legwork,
right.
it will pay off. Keep
Mm,
doing it. Just keep doing it. Even if it scares the crap out of you, just keep doing it.
right, right. Well, everything you want is outside of your comfort zone.
On the other side of fear.
Yes, and we talk about you have to. Where's my hand? You have to open your hand. You have to let it go, and it's scary to let it go, but
Oh yeah.
that's definitely part of it, and that's why um, our world appears to challenge us
Mm,
to get us to, because we are asking, we are flowing that energy. We're just sort of in our own way, so that gets us out of our own way. So
yeah.
that's good. Um, is there anything that you are currently working on
Oh
that
yeah.
you? Oh, okay, good. So
Oh
tell
yeah.
us about that.
Um,
Besides making my website beautiful.
yes. So I have, well, right now I have just sort of a conglomeration of kind of side hustles going on. So I have the consulting business as well, which includes things like web design and business organization
Mhm.
for people that may not necessarily know where to start. And that's one of the biggest things that I like doing for people. So like I'm working with you and I'm working with a couple other of my creative friends that need help with such things because sometimes it is really hard to know where to start. And also I have found that if you are someone who is of a very artistic or creative mind, that some of the left brain stuff is
Mhm.
just Greek to you and it's really hard to understand it. It's really overwhelming to try and work through it. And somehow, some way I've managed to just I can just do that stuff. And because I understand like I understand the creative lifestyle, even if I'm not terribly artistic myself, I understand people who have a craft and they need help. So I've got some photography websites that I'm working on. I've got your website that I'm working on. I have my own website that I am going to be continuing to update.
Right.
I'm also a real estate agent.
Oh, okay.
So I do that as well, which was just kind of like another form of helping people out because I usually only operate for like family and friends at the moment. Um, I do that. And then for my full time gig, I am a UX designer, which is user experience. So that is what allows me to do a lot of the consulting stuff because user experience research and user experience design is essentially the the practice of learning how to help people help themselves to do what they need to do, which includes workflow analysis for like a website. Like if someone arrives on your website and they don't know what to do, that's going to lose you business. So
Yes.
doing those type of analyses is also something else that I do. And yeah, there's a lot of other sort of hobbies that I'm trying to bulk back up because they fell by the wayside for a while. So
Okay. All right. Good. Excellent. Excellent. Well, that's wonderful. And Britt's information has been flashing across the screen, and we will make sure that it's in the comments too, so that you guys can find it, so you can find her website, so you can get in contact with her. She is helping me with, as we've been saying, redoing my website, and she has helped me with some other left brain stuff that I have trouble with, and I really appreciate that. So thank you for all of that.
yeah,
And now we're up to the next page here.
next page.
Right?
Oh
And so there is the pagan holiday that's coming up,
yes,
which
Yule.
is in alignment with Yule, which is sort of the Christmas holiday, if you will. It aligns. Now, is that on the winter solstice or?
Yes. So Yule and the winter solstice are actually synonymous. Yule is just a traditional name for the winter solstice. So the winter solstice is the shortest day and the longest night. It
Right,
is when the time starts to turn towards the dawn, which means that once we peak at the winter solstice for the length of the nighttime, we're going to
right,
start gaining daylight back.
good. good. Which we always like, because
Oh, yes.
getting dark at 4 o'clock is not.
Nope. It's pitch dark, as you can see.
Yes, yes. And now the tradition of the bringing in the evergreen
Yes.
is also part of that. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, like off the top of my head, the Yule holiday, like when we have our little celebration for it every year, it involves all of the kind of conventionally known aspects of this time of year. So like pine cones and evergreen and mistletoe and berries and cinnamon and things of that nature, like all the stuff that makes you feel like warm and cozy for this time of year. And then the evergreen is representative of the fact that even in the dead of winter, everything still thrives, and or everything is just sleeping under the soil until it starts to bloom again in the spring.
Right.
So it's representative of that. It begins turning towards the light, as they say.
Mm-hmm. And the evergreen, the fact that it stays green through the winter, was part of the hope of the spring coming, etc. And I don't beat me up in the comments for this, because I'm not 100% positive, but I do believe that is the origin of the Christmas tree.
It is.
That's what I thought. Okay, good, excellent.
Yep.
Which Marjorie and I have a little glass one right now. We don't have a big Christmas tree just yet, but
It's okay. Better to leave them where they are. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Okay. And the best way for people to connect with you is through your website and through social media, through the information that we've been putting out.
Yep.
And as Britt has said, she can help you with a plethora of things. So please feel free to connect with her and help her do that. And we are going to open it up for questions in a couple of minutes, the guides, if anybody has any questions. But before we do that, I just want to make sure, did we miss anything? Was there anything in your message or anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't share or anything? Do you feel that we covered it well, or is there a little bit more?
Oh, no, this is, the finding a way to kind of explain that I can do the left brain things, but I can also do the spiritual things is really the whole core behind the well-balanced witch concept. Is that bridging gaps between people is like the purpose of my purpose on this rock is to do things like that, whether it is between spiritual things and secular things, or just two different types of people that need help getting to know each other a little better. Like, I am here for that purpose, and that's it.
Okay. All right. And you also read tarot.
I do. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I do tarot readings. And I'm also a Reiki practitioner. So those are two different kinds of things. Sometimes I incorporate them into each other. It kind of depends.
Okay.
Reiki practice is the is energy healing. So usually it's a hands-on or a very close to the body type of healing. It's kind of non-specific. It depends on the person and it depends on what they need. And I can explain it more in detail if anyone wants to ask.
Oops. And I think Britt jumped out for a second. I'm sure she will be right back in. She'll just reconnect and come back in. The the internet dropped for a second. So we are going to open it up to the guides in a couple minutes. So if you do have questions, you can send in the questions. And there you are. You're back. Okay, good. All right. That wasn't so scary, right?
Hey, I'm back. Sorry about that.
No problem. No problem. It's not. So I wanted to talk a little bit more with you. You started learning about reading tarot when you were very young. Oh, and she bounced out again. All right. Hopefully she will be right back. And we'll ask her a little bit more about the tarot. In the meantime,